Welcome to episode 4, State of Development Podcast. I'm your host, John Bone. Today I'm going to talk pretty much only about NPM Gate. It was an interesting story that popped up, and I think it raises a lot of interesting questions around open source and who owns what and what we're allowed to do, and what happens if me as a developer, I want to remove my code from somewhere. It's my code, but it's open source at the same time. Other people have used it. Is there some sort of implicit agreement that whatever I put out there for the world is owned by the world, or do I get to have some say in what can be used for? So just going to talk about that. If you hadn't heard the story, what ended up happening, I guess it was late last week, was there was a company called Kik, K-I-K. They do messaging. I've never used the app, hadn't heard of them before, but they own KIK.com, so they must have some money because that's not cheap. So people are using them, apparently, but it sounds like it's for messaging friends. On their website, it says, hey, chat on Kik. Only Kik lets you connect with friends, groups, and the world around you through chat. Just ask, what's your Kik? So for starters, I disagree that only Kik lets me connect with friends, groups, and the world around me. It's pretty easy through chat most of the time. There's lots of stuff. So -1 point for Kik. So anyway, there were some emails back and forth with this company Kik and a software developer named Azer. Last name I can't pronounce, unfortunately. I think it's an Iraqi last name. And there's a letter. I don't even know what you would name the letter. So I'll just call him Azer. You can find him on GitHub or Twitter. And it's Azerbike, Azerbike. But he had some back and forth via email with the company Kik about a package that he has on NPM called Kik, spelled the same way, K-I-K. And all these emails are available online. You can read them. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can look at them. But the first email is from a gentleman named Bob Stratton at Kik. It comes off fine. I don't really see anything wrong with it. It's a pretty honest question. And he says, Azer, we're reaching out to you as we'd very much like to use our name Kik for an important package that we're going to release soon. Unfortunately, your use of Kik and Kickstarter mean that we can't, and our users will be confused and or unable to find our package. Can we get you to rename your Kik package? Bob Stratton, Kik Interactive. So like I said, pretty gentle question for Azer. And he responds likewise. He says, sorry, I'm building an open source app with that name. Done. So Bob's reply, he immediately starts off the bat with that he doesn't want to be a dick about it. And I feel like anytime you start a paragraph with not wanting to be a dick, you end up being a dick. There's really no better way to say it. It just comes off dickish the second you say, I don't want to be a dick. I think this is where Kik immediately went wrong. Just this first part. It starts to sound like a cease and desist and will essentially steal your package name if you don't comply. So Bob wrote in reply, we don't mean to be a dick about it, but it's a registered trademark in most countries around the world. And if you actually release an open source project called Kik, our trademark lawyers are going to be banging on your door and taking down your accounts and stuff like that. And we'd have no choice but to do all that because you have to enforce trademarks or you lose them. Can we not come to some sort of compromise to get you to change the name without involving lawyers? Is there something we can do for you in compensation to get you to change the name? Bob Stratton, Kik Interactive. So yeah, it comes off like a dick, right? Immediately starts talking about lawyers banging on doors and taking accounts. I really don't know what else you call it other than being a dick. If somebody came to me with that, I think I'd respond exactly how Azer did, which was, ha ha ha, you're actually being a dick, so f*** you, don't email me back. I totally agree. I think he's well in line there. So then Bob says, we're really trying to be reasonable about this to see if we can work it out on a friendly basis. I don't know why you think that makes us a dick. Is there nothing we can do for you that would compensate you for the hassle of changing the name? So he doesn't see it. I don't know how. I'm usually really careful when writing emails because I think I tend to come off as a dick. So I try to have a little... I tend to read my emails a couple times before I send them out. And usually they don't start off like that. And I don't bring in lawyers to stuff. I think he just comes off as rude and trying to steal this guy's thing. Kick is not that unique of a name. I'm sure kick.com was owned by somebody else before that, and it was probably just a domain name that was sitting there. It's not that unique of a name, really, especially if you're talking an open source package. I mean, open source packages all over have different names. Azer actually says, yeah, you can buy it for $30,000 for the hassle of giving up with my pet project for a bunch of corporate dicks. So that comes off as dickish. Back, unfortunately. If I were him, I'd just say, $30,000. That's what you want. If you're a big company, you can afford KIK.com, which I'm sure wasn't cheap. You can afford buying the Kick package name from Azer. He'd give up the pet project, but yeah, he'd have $30K for it. I'd be fine with that. I'd rename an open source project for that. I have plenty of open source projects that I would rename for $30,000. I would give them to you for $30,000. So then Bob seems to be forwarding around an email, or not forwarding around an email, but sends out another email. We're not getting anywhere with this. Can you guys help? We have Kick registered as a trademark in many countries of the world, including US and EU, and have over 270 million users. We'd like to release our package under the name Kick and are afraid if we don't, our users will be confused by Azer's Kick package. We really don't want to involve lawyers and are trying to be reasonable, but Azer doesn't seem to want to be reasonable. Any help would be appreciated, Bob Stratton. He says they have 270 million users, and he's got developers who are going to be using it, who are going to be confused by KIK being used in two spots. I think developers are generally smart people and would not be too confused. It's pretty easy. NPM install, look, wrong package. Oh, I must have gone the wrong place. When I'm looking for packages, I don't blindly put in the name of companies. Like, I don't assume that Square, the NPM package, has anything to do with Square the company, because it's just a word. Granted, they spelled kick wrong, but I still think it's pretty reasonable, safe to assume that if you go to github.com/kick, that's where I look for that kind of thing. Or I just search Kick library, and if they're as popular as they say, Google will realize this and they'll show up higher in the search results. So, for one, there's more. The guy, later email, hi Azer, I hear your frustration. The desire to continue to use Kick and Kickstarter package names is clear. Our goal is to make publishing and installing packages as frictionless as possible. In this case, we believe that most users who would come across a Kick package would reasonably expect to be related to Kick.com. In this context, transferring ownership of these two packages' names achieves that goal. I understand that you've committed time and energy to the packages already, and we don't take that lightly. I'm hopeful that you'll be able to republish the project with a new name. Bob, can we provide an NPM account to transfer the name to? Thank you both for patience and understanding. So at this point, he's starting to talk to people at NPM and CCing Azer in the email, it appears. So he's basically just saying, NPM, take this guy's open source projects and put them here. And we're only talking days of communication here. It's not like it's been weeks or months over time of back and forth. Like, it was less than a week from the start to where we are in the email thread now. He said, no, don't take my packages. Like, I don't want to rename it. And this company said, yes, we are going to rename it. And basically, they just reached out directly to NPM and said, hey, we've got this trademark. Give us this guy's open source accounts. He's got to rename his thing. Even though he was first to NPM, all his stuff was already there. I imagine if I had a Google package years and years ago, not that there were any package managers worth a damn, but if I had one up, I think Google wouldn't have just stolen it from me. I think they probably would have asked me if they could use it and pay me for it, essentially, if they could. If you have 270 million users, you can pay the guy for the thing if he wants to be paid. And granted, payment isn't the whole thing, but anyways, so NPM agrees. Bob Stratton says, thanks for helping like this. We really appreciate it. I will get our account info and get back to you. So I'm curious how much background check NPM did to actually do this. Like if they went to kick.com, I wonder if you could actually use this method to hijack packages. If I just say, I really want, you'd have to pick something that's not popular, but you want to take over, like LeftPad, for instance. But I'll get it out in a minute. then Azer, rightly so, I think, says, Isaac, I'm very disappointed. Isaac is the guy from NPM. Isaac, I'm very disappointed with your decision here. I know you for years and would never have imagined you siding with corporate patent lawyers threatening open source contributors. There are hundreds of modules like Kik, for example, Square. I stole from him when I mentioned the Square thing earlier. I had already read this. But he's right. So you let these corporate lawyers register whatever name they want. No one is looking for a Kik package because they don't have one. I want all my modules to be deleted, including my account, along with this package. I don't want to be part of NPM anymore. I don't want to be part of NPM anymore. If you don't do it, let me know how to do it quickly. I think I have the right of deleting all my stuff from NPM. I think that's where the real question comes in. And you probably already assumed where kind of I laid it on it. So I'll get into that in a second. But so NPM took his account and gave away the packages and sided with the company in this case. And I'm not anti-corporation. I'm fine with corporations. It's more they took this guy's open source work and like just hijacked it. And granted, it's running on their servers, it's that thing. But that's like question number one. You know, I develop something, I release it, I put it up on GitHub. Does that mean GitHub can transfer ownership of my thing to somebody else? Even if I have it licensed open source, kind of what does that mean? How far can my hosting or a package manager actually take it? And I don't know. That's tricky. And question two is, as a developer, say I want all my stuff to be erased from the internet and just removed. I want to take down my stuff from GitHub. I want to take it down from the central package management repository. Can I do that? I think yes. And granted, so what ended up happening after this, he did erase his NPM account, and his NPM account had a specific package in it called leftpad. And leftpad was this like little 36 line, 30 something line, it might be 32, I don't know, 3 odd number library that, you guessed it, it takes a string and it leftpads it. So if you want to add like, make sure everything was all lined up, that you would use this package. So this is going to be a point that I make later, but I think the whole idea of having to use that package is a bit ridiculous to begin with for a project like Babel. And Babel is the project that used it, and everybody used Babel. He took this package down, every package he had down, but one of them happened to be used by one of the most popular open source packages. And NPM made the mistake of deleting existing packages. So you're probably familiar with that bit of it, but even if you use Node last week, you probably lost. You probably weren't able to build, which, you know, for a lot of people was problematic. But if you actually, I happened to see it like right at the beginning because somebody at work had an issue installing it. And I was kind of just looking at it. And I went to the GitHub issues because one popped up within like 5 minutes. And it was funny to watch. I saw it when there was only like 2 or 3 comments on it, and you just saw it build and build, a bunch of comments saying, you know, people not being able to use it. And then you kind of saw the story unfold live as a GitHub issue, which was really interesting. But yeah, so NPM kind of screwed up that. It was more, I don't know. They did what he asked. So this is the question, I guess. As a developer, I release software, open source. I give it to the world. Do I really give it to the world? Do I have the right to revoke my code from the world? Especially, so this was solely developed by one guy. This wasn't like a community thing. I think if you develop like a Rails, obviously it belongs to the community at that point because other people are doing work on it, that kind of thing. If DHH wanted to remove Rails from GitHub and Ruby gems, it just wouldn't happen. It doesn't make sense. But this guy, he had a small little 30-line library, Azer. He doesn't want it to be on NPM anymore. He wants to delete the account, delete the thing. Personally, I think he should be able to do it. It's his thing. He made it. NPM, wronged him in my opinion. So he should have the right to take it down, and he should have the right to essentially break the internet like he did. But it was good. I think it's really good because it actually brings this subject to light. I don't think most people think about this. They take packages for granted. They take the package manager for granted. I've had issues with NPM in the past, especially some security things that I'm not even sure was ever disclosed, and I won't disclose it here. But they've had some pretty serious issues in the past, and they weren't exactly forthright about telling the world that there was an issue there. So they've made mistakes like this in the past, or not exactly the same thing, but in the same vein of, really taking me back on the decisions that they make. So NPM wrote a blog post. The organization wrote a blog post, and they say they stand by their package name dispute resolution policy. And I'm curious how many they've had in the past, how many real issues they've had, and how many times they've actually taken packages from people, because I've not heard of it before, but I'm sure this couldn't have been the first time. This is just the most public for obvious reasons, because the internet broke. But they say, given two packages vying for the same name, they believe that, the confusion is enough. The 200 million people who would know of Kik for the name Kik, any developer who'd go there, they would assume that Kik was that. I disagree with that. It's fine. I agree that more people would probably think that package is what it is, but I don't think they own it. They didn't develop it. They host it. I think that's the distinction. Like, I don't think they have any right to give other people names like that, especially something like Kik, because Kik is pretty generic. If he had a package named Coca-Cola and Coca-Cola wanted to take it, I could start to see that, because that's just a bigger, it's not that it's a bigger, more recognizable brand. It's just, it's not so generic. Like Kik is so generic. It's a misspelt verb. Like, it's not really like a tricky name or like a really good thought. It's just a misspelt verb. Like, I don't know how to say it other than that. I'm sure you know kind of what I'm getting at there. So later in the blog post, they go on to say they've done this a bunch of times. It normally results okay. They talked to both sides to do this. In this case, it didn't happen. So somebody was being problematic. I think Azer did not want to deal with Kik because of the way Kik acted at the beginning. So he just tried to shut him down, and NPM just ended up siding with Kik because it was in keeping with their policy, to be honest. So from there, NPM kind of put out like a what they're going to do from now on set of bullet points, and it's this: we make it harder to unpublish a version of a package. If doing so would break other packages, we are still fleshing out the technical details of how this will work. Like any registry change, we will, of course, take our time to consider and implement it with care. 2, we'll make it harder to maliciously adopt an abandoned package name. If a package with known dependents is completely unpublished, we'll replace that package with a placeholder package that prevents immediate adoption of that name. It will still be possible to get the name of the abandoned package by contacting NPM support. And we are updating our internal policies to help our team stay in sync and address community conflict issues. Number 3, we are updating our internal policies to help our team stay in sync and address community conflict more effectively. So they say we dropped the ball. We have a well-established and documented dispute resolution policy. They continue to do everything to reduce friction for the lives of JavaScript developers. It's fine. I like the placeholder package idea, that kind of stuff, but I don't think they addressed my particular issue with what they did. So, and they probably won't. Who knows if they ever will? Like I said, it's a tricky thing, and it's not something that's black and white. Like, it is a slightly subjective issue. So one thing that struck me, besides just the issue of removing somebody's package from the main package management registry, is the fact that it came from LeftPad. LeftPad was the package that caused the issue, and it was less than 40 lines of JavaScript. That is something that any programmer worth his weight could write. I don't know why Babel was using it to begin with. I could see using it as a spike to get started, but it's such a simple piece of code. I don't get having the dependency and keeping it around for so long. But anyways, that's what I'm going to talk about the next episode. Next episode is going to come shortly. It's not going to be as long this time. Just last gap between episodes was like a couple weeks because I had a bunch of stuff going on. But I'm actually going to try to do this next episode this week and talk about that kind of thing. I'm hoping I can actually get it done tomorrow, maybe tonight even, if I'm feeling up to it later. But whenever it comes, just keep an eye out for it. It's going to be Dependencies as Technical Debt. And as always, if you like the show, go to iTunes, leave a review. Let me know what types of things you want to hear more of, want to hear less of. Like I've said before, I want to try to get some guests on. I just haven't done it. Like I said, the past 2 weeks have been a bit crazy. There was a work trip, then I was getting back and just trying to get settled back at home. So coming up, though, more episodes, more interviews, more news. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.